Hello, I'm Alex Howard from O'Reilly Media. We're here at the Strata conference, and I'm with Tyler Bell, the Director of Product for Factual.
Factual.
I wanted to say Factually because it's still Web 2.0, but it's just Factual.
Yes.
Okay. So I was looking over your background a little bit, and the first thing that came to mind is how does archaeology relate to big data?
Yeah, it's a bit of a curious segue. The great thing about archaeology is you're working with all kinds of information. So you're dealing with structured content, unstructured content, geographic information, photographs, oral histories, narratives, and commentary. You're bringing this all together, and you're making sense of it, and you're doing that as part of a team. So archaeology, people think it's sort of old-fashioned bullwhips and hats and trowels. It's actually a massively data-intensive exercise. And so when I was at Oxford, there wasn't really a system that allowed one to bring this information together. And so I started programming, taught myself to program, built that, spun a company out, got interested in the technology and business, less so in the archaeology, and find myself here a couple of years on.
There's the progression.
Yeah.
So unlike
entirely natural.
Some data scientists, when you think about dirty data, it might actually relate to some past experience you've had.
Yeah, it's entirely not metaphorical.
Okay. Well, your fingernails look clear for the moment, but in the larger sense, I know you participated in a number of different industry events around data, and when I look at this space, one of the phrases that popped out is the idea of consumer engagement, right? So the idea that you should be able to take all the data and then apply it different places. Is that really the holy grail, or is there something higher in terms of the consumer side?
Well, I think the way I'd articulate that side, and everybody's going to have a different answer here, of course, but it's all about relevance, right? It's how you can present the correct content to the right user at the right time, and I think most importantly, certainly from where I'm coming from and where Factual's coming from right now, is in the right place. That geographic context is so visceral, it's very worldly, and if it doesn't relate to where you are or who you are, then it's not valuable information, at least on the consumer side.
So I was digging around online to see what you've been doing and what you've been working on, and I found a Quora question, and it struck me that it is interesting to ask what does place list harmonization mean in the context of data, and do those kinds of efforts matter?
Yeah, you touch upon a really very topical issue right now. I think certainly within so-called big data, but especially within local and any kind of location-based service. And the issue here is that you have so many independent silos or applications or platforms. Every iPhone device has its own data store. Some of them call it a central API, some will build on Foursquare, others on Factual. But you're left with this multitude of data that's just duplicated across the web. And it's very difficult to take a high-level overview of what's happening where. And you could say that about people and things as well, to get a better understanding. How do you understand something outside of Facebook? Or how do you merge the knowledge of what people are talking about on Google Plus with what's going on Facebook? And of course, platforms are designed to isolate this. They want to capture the audience. So we're dealing with two things. One is that data are broadcasted out and duplicated, which makes things very messy. And equally, it's siloed and compartmentalized. And so what the so-called harmonization projects attempt to do, what we call our crosswalk initiative, allows us to tie entities together explicitly. To say that this hotel is the same in one namespace as it is in another. And really what that means now is people can take holistic views of information outside of a specific venue, outside of an application, outside of a silo, and get a much broader and therefore much more realistic analysis of how individuals are relating to that place and that thing.
Now that almost, you're talking about standardizing places in terms of how you describe them in data, if I understand that correctly. Is that something then that Factual will be working with a lot of other companies to do? How does that work in terms of all collaborating, deciding to call the same place the same thing?
Yeah, well, I don't think you can play that game. There's various, a whole world of initiatives are trying to I guess, for the past 15 years, of trying to say this is how you call something. It's called basically controlled vocabularies, whether it's a alphanumeric identifier or just the correct terminology to use within a discipline. And that doesn't really work because it may not be the right term for the right individual. When I was an archaeologist, my introduction to this was different monuments were called different things in distinctive geographic areas of the world. So you can't say, well, you have to call it this, even though sort of for generations it's not been called that. It's very sort of imperialistic. So coming back to the data side, you're never going to get agreement because that's not going to work for everybody. You do tend to get people that push their elbows out figuratively and say that we're the only guys in town or we're the dominant players, so you're going to use ours. Factual's trying to do something very different, and I think it's really the only way that you can do this properly is to say, we're one player in town, we're not the only one. We want to make ourselves the most accessible and the most usable and the most valuable, not by isolating ourselves from others, but by linking to others. And so we're trying to really position ourselves as a bit of a nexus. And of course, other organizations will do that too, and there's no reason you can't have more than one nexus there.
Okay. I think I got my new thing to avoid, no data imperialism. That's probably as good a place as any to leave it for now.
Very good.
So that was Tyler Bell. He's Director of Project for Factual. He just gave a great talk here at the Strata conference. I think some of that will be available to the web in the not-so-distant future. You can find him online in various places, and of course you can find Factual as well. So it's Alex Howard signing off for now for O'Reilly Media. We'll be back with more interviews in not so long future.